I went out to talk to a young couple in one of the housing areas in the city after a domestic violence incident. Spent some time getting to know them, a couple, 30, 40 minutes having conversations. And at the end of the conversation, the young man that was involved looked at me and said, Mr. Hall, he's like, I want to do something different. I want to change. Can you help me? And I couldn't because I didn't have any good programs to send him to. And so I was like, well, we got to do something. There's got to be a better answer than this. I had a conversation with Dr. Scarborough here at Real Life, and I was like, what is that out there? Are you aware of anything?
What we found is there's really not anything out there. Curriculums that are available were written over 20 years ago. They do not include anything about trauma, and research has shown that they're actually not that effective.
And she was like, why don't we just make something? And I was like, yes, let's do that.
We were able to partner with the Virginia Department of Health to develop a curriculum. Before somebody starts in the program and going through the curriculum, we will identify, are they a perpetrator? And most of the time when people think of that, they think abuse, physical abuse. And of course that is a very strong sign of domestic violence, or a big part of it. But there are so many other controlling behaviors that also are involved with domestic violence or intimate partner violence. And so through a screening that we use, we can really understand, has somebody been on that perpetrator end? And then once they are screened, they'll be able to be a part of the classes.
What it is a 10-session class on understanding healthy relationships. Some of them deal with trauma from childhood experiences. Some of them are in abusive relationships or have come out of abusive relationships. So really, we talk a lot about where the anger comes from and identifying the anger. We talk about understanding and addressing trauma. So we really want to try to get to the root causes of where that anger or abusive behaviors may come from. We talk about myths of masculinity and trying to address issues that men in general have with dealing with their emotions, and societal stigmas behind that, what a healthy relationship looks like.
We really want to give them some tools to help regulate those emotions. So most of these guys have no sort of thought process on, all right, I can actually control my response to anger.
They might say they want to do different, but without literal knowledge of doing different, it is quite impossible, especially when somebody is really in the heat of the moment.
Some men in general, this is just all they know, be it how they were raised or what they witnessed as a child growing up.
And then on the other side, many survivors, that is normal to them. That is something that they have grown up with. They have been told and almost brainwashed over years that I wouldn't do this if I didn't love you. If you hadn't looked at that person, I wouldn't have done this. And so really showing on both angles that this is not okay, but here is how things like that should be handled is really the crux of the program.
At the beginning of the class, there's usually a little bit of pushback, right? Like, I don't need this class and I can do this. But by the end of the class, and throughout the class, you see light bulb moments for the guys. And that's my favorite part of the class, is when you see the things that we're trying to get across and you see that light bulb moment, they're like, I've actually been doing this my whole life.
And so being able to give people literal tools to change those behaviors and hopefully change future generations has just been so incredible.
But the feedback is almost always, I wish I had this class 10 years ago. I wish I had this class 20 years ago. I wish I had this class as a young man to actually help me and prevent me from going down any of the roads that I went. And that's the best feedback I think we can get.
There's so many programs out there for survivors of domestic violence, which is wonderful. I don't think we can ever have enough of that. But ultimately, if we are gonna break these cycles, there has to be something available for those that engage in the perpetrator side. And so really the creation of this curriculum enables just that, for those cycles to stop.
I come from a law enforcement background, right? So I see what happens when fathers aren't being fathers, when men aren't being men. Ideally, in hopes, is that these guys that are going through this class, it will affect their grandchildren and their grandchildren's children. That's the hope. And families are improved because fathers are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
The more they work on themselves, then they can get out and hopefully cut down on recidivism. We're trying to avoid them getting reincarcerated and keep these families together. And so goes the father, so goes the family, so goes society.